Now, was that also that scene, because there was that sort of rumor when you had to like take a hiatus because Maggie Q hit you, or the stunt double or something like that happened?
The stunt double, it was the first shot of the day, and Maggie Q's stunt double, it just mistimed the stunt and kicked me in the head with 2 high-heeled boots. And I had to take a hiatus. I went to the doctors. I got stitched up, and I took the rest of the day off. But I was back to work the next day.
Wow, just like John McClane.
Just like John McClane, rubbing the dirt on it. But there are a couple shots actually in the film. I think there's a shot where I'm talking to Cliff Curtis's character, who plays Special Agent Bowman, who is the head of the FBI. In this film, where you can actually see the stitches in my forehead, around my eyes.
The actual stitches from that sort of mishap.
The actual stitches from getting kicked in the head. There were about 15 on the outside and about 28 on the inside.
Should all be looking for that scene to say we have a little inside info.
Look for it, yeah, and you can when the DVD comes out, you'll certainly be able to see it and TiVo it. The plastic surgeon that sewed me up, I thought he had a sense of humor, and he kind of lifted the cut open. He said, "Okay, now that's your skin, and that red part there is the muscle, and that white part down there is your skull."
Oh no!
Said, all righty, let's get it sewn back up and leave the jokes to the professionals.
Wow. Well, I guess all this kind of leads me. There are a couple of questions here, and one that drops out is Glop OG asks, and I guess from the last sort of 2 answers you've had, you've mentioned sort of the elevator and also this last bit. Favorite and most sort of iconic scene from this movie? I mean, is there one that you have a favorite that we should be looking out for?
Well, I like the first. I like the first. Let's see, what would I call warfare scene? Fight scene, warfare scene. It's kind of a running gun battle between John McClane and at that particular point in the film, unknown high-tech bad guys, assassins who have come to kill Justin Long. I like that. I like the kills in that one. There's a great set piece in the middle of the film, which is a fairly extensive fight with Maggie Q that is particularly brutal, and really the only CGI in the film has to do with an F-35, which is the new version of a Harrier jet, which can hover and stay stationary and move laterally, because there's some rule about not flying a jet 25 feet off the deck in the streets of downtown Washington, D.C.
You would never think that would actually be a rule. That's wild.
You would think that they would, come on, it is Die Hard, and you would think that they would give us a little latitude, but I actually do battle with an F-35 jet. Some of which you see, I think, in some of the trailers.
Well, I'm glad you bring the whole CGI aspect up, because I think what's so unique in this sort of crowded movie marketplace is the fact that that's what this movie is. It's just all grit in your face, and everything else comparatively is all thrown into a computer and just sort of drummed up to a certain degree, And here we've got some real grit and some real action and real, I guess the word would be sort of real hero humor, and action and grit.
Exactly. And it really is, I would say that if it's anything, if I had to describe this episode of Die Hard in any way, in any simple way, it's an old school action movie. In a sense, Len Wiseman brought Die Hard into the 21st century, but he also we also made a very old school film that, the technology aside, could have taken place in the 80s. In terms of the actual fights.
Sure. Yeah. Well, along the lines of this sort of like old school action, Leandro Barbosa writes, "Will we hear yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, in this movie?"
Yes, you will, Andrew.
Excellent. That was perfect, short and sweet. Cool.
Along the lines of the CGI versus old school, argument. A good example of how pervasive CGI has gotten in the world of films. I went to see a film with my 13-year-old daughter Tallulah, and at the end of the film, I asked her what she thought of it, and she said, "You know, Dad, I never really thought any of the characters were in actual danger." And I asked her what she meant. She said, "Well, I just know that this was all computer-generated images, and I know most of the actors were standing in front of a big green screen." Now, you know, granted, she grew up in a film family, but I think a lot of people know that that's how it's done anymore. And when you see two guys actually fighting it out, or a guy and a expert martial artist like Maggie Q, actually smashing each other in the face. I mean, obviously, we're not really punching each other in the face, but you know that you're not fighting a computer-generated robot.
Sure, there's that reality, though, and almost like that sense of urgency when you see two real people at least engaged in that kind of activity.
Exactly, and it looks like it hurts. In some cases,
it did.
It did hurt, yeah.
Well, Larry Carroll asks, he says, "Bruce, will Holly McClane ever come back?"
You know, I would really like to see Holly McClane come back. I think to a certain degree you're going to see a version, like a version 2.0 of Holly McClane come back in the character of Lucy McClane in this film. Mary Elizabeth Winstead really did her homework on this film and on the whole series of films. And her character originally was not even written into the script, and I think it was such a good idea for her to be in the film and to be put in jeopardy in the film, because not only does she show up with her own version of the McClane sense of humor, but she does things later in the film that actually help us win.
That's great. Well, Aleron Ryder asks, "Bruce, what kind of advice would you give any aspiring actors or actresses that are starting off in this kind of career you have made a living off of?"
I would say that if there is any other way that you can express yourself as an artist, if you can paint, I would say do that. If you can sculpt, I would say do that. If you can write, do that. I think acting is a really difficult racket to break into, and I would only suggest doing it if you feel that it's something that you just can't live without. And if you're going to do it, I think you got to go to New York and study with a really great acting teacher. I've never really been convinced that there are that many great acting teachers in California.
So you got your start in New York? Is that what it was?
Doing theater, yeah.
Doing
and
theater.
I also studied in New York. I studied with Stella Adler, and I studied with an acting coach named Wynn Hanman. But I was in and out of those acting classes because I continued to get work as an actor off Broadway and then off Broadway.